Hi everyone, I'm Shiplett for those of you that are here for the first time. And today I am sharing about how I met my husband, what happened before I do, and what it's like being married now. When a lot of people hear our love story, they're always like, oh my gosh, your story belongs in a book, in a movie. And some people have gone as far as to say like, create copies of your, your story, your testimony, how you guys met. It's crazy the things that people say because they're truly inspired. And I mean, honestly, we can't take credit for it. He wasn't looking for love. I wasn't looking for love. It was more of this I would call it a divine appointment of God. And it's a really, really awesome story. So I'm going to start from the beginning. It's story time. And this is to encourage you if you're currently single and you're like, oh gosh, like when's my person coming? Like when is it going to happen? I really hope that by sharing you're greatly encouraged to wait on God's timing. So all right, so how I met my husband. I had to go to Indiana because my grandpa had surgery and then he was gonna have another one and he really needed help. And so I was the only person available to go and help, and I got a ticket, a pretty cheap plane ticket. It was like really cheap. I got a great deal. However, I had to stay at the airport for nighttime, so it was a long layover. It was from like 10 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. or 8 a.m., something like that. So I already knew this was gonna happen, and when I hopped on the plane, I kept praying like, God, let me be in your perfect will. If you allow it, Lord, let me minister to people. Let me talk to people that need to know about you, that need hope. So, ooh, my eye. So I kept praying and then got to the airport, went to go have dinner. Thankfully, there was still like a restaurant bar open. So grabbed some dinner, and then next to me there was this guy, and I just started talking to him and sharing with him about Jesus. And he shared with me how he had been questioning the whole Christianity thing and that he had questions that no one could answer. So I talked to this guy for a while, answered his questions. He ended up giving his life to Jesus, which is super awesome. And so I was chatting with this guy for a while, and then I really had to use the restroom, and the restrooms nearby me were being cleaned during that time, which caused me to have to go and look for another restroom. So here I am, like walking, minding my own business, looking for a restroom, and then out of nowhere, like my foot kind of slips. I didn't fall or anything. My foot just kind of went out, and it was because there was water on the floor. So I started laughing, hoping that no one saw, and thank God I didn't take myself that seriously. Back in the day I used to, but then during this time of my life I just really didn't take myself that seriously, and I would laugh at myself when things like this would happen. So I was laughing, like hoping no one saw, and then I turned around and right behind me was Austin, who's now my husband. And so he was laughing at me, and I was like, okay. And so just to change the topic, I asked him like, oh, hey, like what time's your flight at? And then he shared with me, actually, I missed my flight. There was a storm with my first flight, and so it caused me to miss my second flight. So now I'm here till tomorrow till 5 p.m. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And I was like, well, what are you gonna do? And he was like, well, for now, I'm gonna go walk around and look at all the stores. And I was like, but the stores are closed. And he was like, well, yeah, but I'm just gonna like go around and look. And I was like, this guy. And I was just laughing, and I was like, huh, he's like interesting. So we chatted for a bit, like a few minutes, and then I was like, all right, well, bye. And he was like, bye. And then next thing you know, like 20 minutes later, I see him walk by me, and I was like, hey, how's the store watching going? And he was like, good. And then he went his own way. And then about 15 minutes later, I see him again, and I was like, I keep seeing this guy. Like, I was like, am I like supposed to share with him about Jesus? Does like God want me to share something with him? I mean, I thought he was really cute, but that was it. I was more like thinking like, does he need to hear about God? Does God want me to share something? I mean, this is just a random guy at the airport. So the third time I see him pass by, that's when I'm like, hey, like, since you're here at the airport till tomorrow, would you be interested tomorrow in the morning, like around 6 a.m. going for a walk together? We can look at stores together. And so I was gonna take this time of walking, because I mean, I did like walking to share with him about God. So anyways, and also he was looking for a place to like sleep, and I had earlier that day I had seen, earlier that night I had seen a place in the second level that it was a little bit more quiet and not as many people and a great spot to sleep. So I was like, hey, in the second floor you can actually sleep there. And he was like, great. So we exchanged numbers and we're like, okay, I'll see you in the morning. And so later on, when I was like ready to go sleep for a few hours, I'm like going to the second floor and I see where he's sleeping, and I was like, I am not gonna sleep near where he's at because that's awkward. So I set my alarm and I put it for like 5:30 a.m. and then I went to where he was at and he was still there, and I like gently kicked him in his back and I was like, get up. And he was like, what? And so he gets up, and you know, I'm like, okay, I gotta go to the restroom really quick, you know, girly stuff, get ready really quick. And so then I was really hungry by this time, by like 6. So I was like, hey, do you mind if we grab breakfast? And he was like, sure. So we went and grabbed breakfast, and he grabbed the lemonade, I think, and that was it. And I grabbed coffee and fruit. So we were chatting for a bit, and I was like trying to share with him about Jesus and, you know, talking to him about God. And he was like, well, I'm already a believer, and like, you know, I've read the Bible and I do believe. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And so then there was little things where we were like, what, you? Me too. So little things like, I went into my backpack, and so like I always carry wipes. I mean, I use wipes in the bathroom, wipes in my hands. I need wipes for everything. So I take out my wipes, and he was like, you use wipes? I was like, yeah. And he was like, me too. And then we were like, okay, I'm laughing because my cameraman, who's his brother, is laughing, so that's why I'm laughing. So then other things like, I went through psychology school and he studied psychology. So little things like that, which were so crazy. We were like, what? Me too, me too. So like as the conversation kept going, there were like so many similarities. And I felt like I was looking at the boy version of me, which was weird. And before I left, because I was like, oh my gosh, is he not gonna eat? Why is he just drinking a lemonade? I remember I had almonds in my bag, so I thought I wasn't gonna see him anymore, but I wanted to make sure that he ate. So I was like, here's some almonds. I was already feeding my husband. And so he walked me to my gate, and I didn't know if I was gonna see this person ever again. All I knew is that he was super cool, and I was like, I think I like this guy, but I was like, okay, this is probably nothing, like, you know, I just met this guy and I'm about to be moving to South Africa soon, so it doesn't even matter. But then, I don't know, I was just like, I could not stop thinking about him, and he kept texting me, and it was back and forth. And then I think by like the third day I had said like, oh, you know, I think you're really cute. And then he was like, I think you're good looking too. And then it was like this whole flirtatious thing by the third day. So I was like, you know, like, before I leave to South Africa, you can fly out to California. At the time I was living in San Diego. So I was like, you can come for a few days and visit. And he was like, okay, I'll look into it. And he booked the flight. And when he booked the flight, I just remember I began to freak out because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? He's gonna meet my family and friends. Like, oh my gosh, what if this is just a distraction from the enemy? Like, what if this guy tries to get in between me and the mission and ministry that God has for me? And I was so scared. And anyways, to make it short, he ends up going to San Diego for a week. All of my friends and family love him, And I mean, I get to know him more, and he's so respectful, so kind, so gentle. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really, really, really like this guy. And I was like, I'm in love with this guy. And we were just like, it was like we just clicked. We got along so well, and such a gentleman. Like, oh my gosh, he truly is. And so, I kept asking people, like, do you feel peace about him? Is he good? And everyone was like, yeah, he's a great guy. Like, he's great. I think he said yes. And so then his mom invited me to come out to Oklahoma. And so she was like, you know, if you ever want to come visit us, like, just know you're welcome. And, you know, we'd love to meet you. So then I ended up flying to Oklahoma for a week to meet his family and spend time with them. And it was awesome. They made me laugh so much. And so I was like, oh my gosh, everything is great. His family is great. I love everything. And then, I go back to San Diego. I have about 2 weeks, I think, before I moved to South Africa. And within the time I got to San Diego, I started getting very anxious about Austin and the situation. And I'm thinking, I'm moving too fast. Maybe this isn't God's will. I think he's intervening with what God's doing in my life. So as soon as I get to San Diego from Oklahoma, like 2 days after, I like call him and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I have to end this, like whatever this is, it can't be. I know I just met your family and they're great, but like I need a few months to just like spend time with God and process, and I'll talk to you in 4 months, and if you're still there, great. And I even called his parents and I was like, it was so nice to meet you guys, and I'm so sorry, but like I have to end this. I hope you understand. And I was so sad. I remember I cried so much. And then about 2 days later, 1 or 2 days later, one of my closest friends who actually got to know him during that week that he was in San Diego, she's like crying and super mad at me. And she was like, this is the worst mistake you've ever made. Like, I don't believe that this is not of God. I truly believe this is of God, and you're just being afraid, and I really believe in my heart that this is of God. So I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe she is right. Maybe I'm making a mistake. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take him back and just trust God and trust the process. So I set up a meeting, a phone call with his parents and with him. And so we call his parents, my friend and I call his parents, and and Austin, and then we're like, we're so sorry, I make a mistake, can we please start again? And his parents were like, okay, just I guess like make sure this doesn't happen again, or like I don't even remember what they said, but pretty much in the terms of like, this is not a game. So take him back. I moved to South Africa, and with the hopes that he would be able to fly out within 5-6 months of me moving to South Africa, hoping he could go. So moved to South Africa. We're like long distance dating. Everything's going great. We're growing our relationship. We went over this amazing book, couples book, during my time there, which has been so helpful even right now in my marriage. It's awesome. I love this book. I'll link it in the link below in my info. And so we're dating, and by the grace of God, Austin's able to go out to South Africa, and he's out there for a month serving with me. And then during my time there, he proposed to me, and I said yes, of course. Excuse me. And so we're dating, and I have we hadn't set a wedding date, but then it was like an idea. I was like, well, why don't we get married this date? And it didn't work out. And then I was like, well, what about like May? So May ended up working out, and we got married this May, and right now it's 2019. So May 25th, 2019, our wedding was so like, oh my gosh, our wedding was more than anything I could have asked for or dreamed of. It was so amazing, and he's so awesome. And I I had a really hard time during my, I would say the first 6 months with Austin, like questioning God, like, is it truly of you? Because I had so much fear in the relationship. Before Austin, when I was 18, I was engaged and it didn't work out. And then a relationship prior to him, who I broke up with, another dude, I had horrible experience. And so for me, dating and marriage involved so much fear because my heart had been so crushed in the past. That marriage to me was so fearful. And then with the last guy, God had said no, and he had said, that's not the guy for you. So for me, the fear with Austin was that because I loved him so much, I had this fear that God was gonna say no. And so I like really had to pray about Austin and ask for confirmation. So I asked for 4 confirmations, several confirmations, and God came through in every single one of them. Like, I realized I should have brought water with me. So God came through with every single one of them. About 2 years ago, before dating Austin, I had told God, okay, whoever's the guy for me, I want him to give me a heart key necklace. And Austin didn't know this. And then before I left to South Africa, during my time in Oklahoma, Austin actually bought me a heart key necklace. And you would think it would be enough for me to be like, oh my gosh, that's the one, I'm not going to question it anymore. But no, I was like a bull. I'm like, no. So then the second one was, okay, if he is the one, I want someone to tell me they had a dream of me getting married. And then a few months later, my grandpa calls me and he's like, hey, I actually had a dream of you getting married. And it was so crazy. And then I was like, that's not enough. I was like, I need more confirmation. And so I was at church and I said, God, if this is of you, I need someone to say like, I see a green light and God is saying go, like he approves. So a few weeks after, I'm at church and someone has a prophetic word, and they get up and then they're speaking and then they say, God's given me a vision, and the vision I see is a green, yellow, and red light, and the light is green, and God is saying he has approved. And I was like, what? And then the last one that finally did it for me, where I was like, okay, like I'm not gonna question anymore, like this is it. The last one was, I had to go to Dubai for 10 days, and I was out there with a church and we were praying for the church. And during my time of prayer for the church, we're just specifically praying for the church, and we're praying, and then out of nowhere, one of the elders, pastor, he stops and he's like, Diana, like, God's given me a vision for you. I see you're walking with a man, and he's leading you and you're following, but you stop and you question it. And he was like, I just want you to know that God is saying that this is a good man, that this man is of him, and like you can follow. And then he starts prophesying over our marriage, like saying these like powerful things that like have been in my heart and that no one knows about. And he starts speaking that over our marriage, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh. So I admire Dubai in so many ways, because I feel like that's the place that did it for me. I experienced God's grace for my relationship and marriage in such a powerful way. So that's been it. And then as far as our marriage, what we have experienced, so we've been married for 4 months. 4 months, and it has been amazing. I mean, I absolutely love my husband. He makes me laugh. He's my best friend. We're super close to each other. He's just so cute. I'm like, oh. But I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh my gosh, everything's perfect. In the beginning, as soon as we got married, there was like differences where I was like, I don't agree with this, and then things like that. It was just more like miscommunication that we needed to learn to communicate. And so now I feel like we're really in that place where we just get each other, we understand each other. One of those miscommunications would be YouTube and me blogging and writing a book, because it was more of like, I was saying like, hey, I'm gonna do this, and he was like, no, you're not. And I was like, why not? And it was more because I was saying I'm gonna do this and I wasn't consulting him. So and I was also not sharing the heart behind it. So I finally sat him down one day and I was like, okay, this is the reason why I want to blog and make YouTube videos. Here's the heart behind it. This is the why, and this is the main focus is truly to glorify God, and this is like a structured plan, and I'm asking for permission. Do you approve? And so yeah, obviously he approved, but it was all about communication. And yeah, it's been really awesome. We're learning to grow together, and I love him. I really do. We're super close. I respect him, I honor him. And talking about respect, if you want to watch a video on 10 ways to show your husband respect, I have one, so look in my videos. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you guys want to know anything else, let me know. I would say the only things I left out would be prior to meeting Austin, I kept seeing a ring in my finger. There was no ring in my finger, but I kept seeing a ring, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I'm gonna get married. I even told my mom, and she laughed at me, and then I was like, I'm married. She was like, what? How do you see a ring in your finger, girl? You don't have a boyfriend. And then your boyfriend's like, there's no boyfriends there. And then the other one would be that I kept seeing the number 711 for about 2 years. And so that number 711 is so meaningful because I met my husband. Sorry, not I met. So I met my husband, and then when we took that photo at the airport, behind us the clock says 711. And then when I came to Oklahoma, it was he was coming from his brother's to Oklahoma also, so he was supposed to arrive July 10th, which was 7:10, but something happened to his flight again, so he ended up arriving 7:11. So it's crazy. I just feel like God gave me so much confirmation for our marriage. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I really wanted to share with you guys because people are always like asking us about it, and I wanted to share the details. So yeah, also I've been having in my mind to make a video on how to have a wedding on a budget, because that's what we did and we were so good about it. So if you want a video about that or dating or anything, let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Mwah.